The Japanese concept of Ikigai is often misunderstood. What does it really mean?
A set of colourful wooden rods has helped millions of children with their arithmetic. What were they called and how did they come to be?
The colour purple is not just a Hollywood movie. We tell the story of the colour itself.
And Harry Houdini was magic's greatest visionary. What's his story?
Hello and welcome to REMORANDOM, a celebration of everything interesting. I'm Remo Dufresne.
And I'm Claudia Chan Shaw.
So Claudia, remember I was telling you about REMORANDOM number 4 off to the printer?
Yeah.
Proofreading.
How's it going? Yep.
How's it going? Well, funny you should ask. It's going here. It's going.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's done.
It's gone and it's back. It's here for you people watching. Here's me flicking the pages.
Look, words on pages.
Very clumsily in front of the camera sitting on top of my... Yeah, so relieved that the green is making me happy because, you pick a colour and you never know.
Yeah,
the green's a nice green, right?
Pretty green.
You're soaking in it.
Dishwashing liquid.
Now, non-Australians are scratching their head.
Yeah, none of Australians of a certain age.
Turning the dial. Turning off. Thanks for losing our, audience of 14 people. Anyway, so that's big news. Well, these are just the advanced copies, but so the rest of them will be on a vessel on the way to us soonish, I think.
Exciting.
But the extra good news is that they've arrived in time for me to take some to the TED conference. So that's starting on Sunday night in Vancouver. Oh. And I'm going. It's probably the last TED that I will go to, given that I have sort of more or less exited from my TEDx Sydney overseeing role. Looking forward to it. Going to have some fun there. The books are going to be for sale in the TED bookstore. Someone who works for TED, who lives here in Sydney, did me a favour and agreed to schlep a carton of books in his. He gets more luggage allowance than I do. So Melanie made the delivery a couple of days ago. Thanks, Will. You know who you are. Above and beyond, 14 kilograms of books in your excess luggage. Yeah, so I would be able to have the green one there as this one's not for sale, but you can
indent the order.
You can subscribe or order and you'll get that. So looking forward to showing off to people that I've been attending that conference with off and on for 35 years and showing them my new baby. What was it recently I saw you had something happening at the Art Gallery of New South Wales? What was that about?
Yeah, that was about a celebration of the centenary of Art Deco, because in the year 2025, it's 100 years since Art Deco burst onto the world stage in 1925 in Paris at the Exposition des Arts Décoratifs. So I was giving these 4 lectures over 4 weeks about the origins of Art Deco, the influences, all the different things that help to contribute to the style, streamlining, sculpture, painting. So it was a big series. And it's kind of funny because I've always been interested in Art Deco design, since I was a teenager. And then to think that, you go through this funnel of life and at the end and at this stage, here I am lecturing about something that I would do anyway and doing something I love. Yeah,
no, you're so fortunate, everyone. Well, funnily enough, strangely enough, that's the first thing I want to talk to you about. It's a Japanese concept and it's called Ikigai. And it which translates to a reason for being. And it really refers to something that gives a person a sense of purpose, a reason for being, a raison d'etre. And the term compounds 2 Japanese words, ikiru, to live, to exist, and kai, which is worth and value. So Ikigai, there's a book by Hector Garcia called Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. You've probably seen it in bookshops. It's hugely successful. It's been translated into 63 languages. It's sold more than 3 million copies since its release in 2016. So it's this romantic notion of, well, hopefully not too romantic, that, we're all searching for that Venn diagram crossover point where we're doing something that we're good at, that we enjoy doing, and which is generating enough income for us to, live our lives and satisfy our basic and other needs. The careerists have kind of latched onto it somewhat. And there's a blogger, Mark Wynn, who in 2014, he merged this Venn diagram with the Ikigai concept, probably giving economic status and financial success, too much weight, because in reality, it's a misinterpretation, because for most Japanese, Ikigai is not simply related to that. It's often about outside of work hobbies and relationships and people living by their values. There was a movie not so long ago about the guy who was a Japanese toilet cleaner, and there was a lot of scenes in the movie with him with like what looked like a toothbrush cleaning toilets. But, it was the routine of his life, and it was very satisfying for him. So the careerist Venn diagram doesn't accurately really communicate that, but nonetheless, it's hard not to apply the concept to your own lifelong search for meaningful work that sustains you, right? As recently as this morning, I'm still a bit jet lagged from my recent trip to Europe, but I penned an email to my son because I was cleaning up my website, and I noticed that I had a post on Ikigai there, which I thought he might find relevant for, some decisions that he's currently making about his life and career. I kind of take it one step further in my blog post, because it's all well and good to, know sort of more or less what you want to be doing, but how do you get there? What's the methodology that you use to get closer to this kind of magical crossover point? And my argument is that all you really need to do is to be a seeker and have a sort of bias to act. So you need to start and do something. It can be anything, it doesn't really matter what it is, because once you've started that, if it's not where you want to be, then as a seeker, you will come across other opportunities, and you won't move on to the next one unless it gets you closer to your Ikigai, right? So it's kind of a process of jumping from one spot to the next, and eventually looking back and thinking, hey, I'm lecturing about my passion to a whole bunch of people in an art gallery, and I'm being paid for it. I mean, how good is that?
Good. That's pretty good.
So, so Ikigai is about reflecting on your passions and strengths and values and seeking out opportunities, so that's, so I was actually the Ikigai guy, if that's a phrase that I'm allowed to use, back in 2018 when I went to the TED conference. So what's that? 7 years ago. They asked me to host a Jeffersonian dinner, which is like this dinner with a whole bunch of people sitting around a table around a topic. And my topic was finding one's Ikigai. And so we all kind of had to go around the table and talk about, why we loved what we were doing or why we hated what we were doing, and, what we were doing about doing it better and being happier about stuff.
What makes your heart sing?
Yeah, and it was kind of an impactful dinner, and a lot of those people still send me a note from time to time, to find out what's going on. So that was nice. But
and maybe some of them are still searching.
Yes, well, we're always searching, no matter where we are, right? And so for many Japanese, the Ikigai is kind of inexorably linked to another concept, kodawari, which I think you'll resonate with too. Kodawari is about doing things properly with great attention to detail. So, being very mindful and deliberate about what you do. So that's
like
my
that.
community service announcement for the day.
But I also like that the Japanese have a one-word term that sums up this huge concept.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, they are a pretty amazing culture. So.
They are indeed. They are indeed. Something that did not come out of Japan was the Cuisenaire rod. Let me tell you about these. Back in, let me see, December 1952, Georges Cuisenaire, who was a Belgian fellow, published a little book called Les Nombres en couleur, which outlines the use of colourful counting rods. So Cuisenaire rods are these little small pieces of coloured wood, and they behave the way numbers behave, these little rods. So they provide the learners with a physical model for the study of mathematics. So you're kind of visualizing what you're talking about. So Monsieur Cuisenaire was a violin player, and he taught music as well as teaching arithmetic. And he wondered why kids found it really, really easy and enjoyable to pick up a tune, whereas they did not find it so easy and enjoyable to learn mathematics. So he started experimenting in 1931 with a set of 10 little rods that was sawn out of wood and cut into little pieces 1 centimetre to 10 centimetres long. He then painted each of them a different colour, and he began using them in his teaching of arithmetic. And the invention wasn't really known outside his hometown of Troyes for about 23 years, until in 1953 a British mathematics education specialist named Caleb Guettignon was invited to see these kids using rods and learning, and he thought, this is a great idea. So he called them Cuisenaire rods, and he started trialling them and popularizing the rods in teaching. So he forms the Cuisenaire Company in Reading, in England, in 1954. By the end of the 1950s, Cuisenaire rods have been adopted by teachers in 10,000 schools all over the world. Maybe you remember them as a kiddie in Australia.
I certainly
So they
do.
become ubiquitous in the 60s and 70s, and so if you are a certain age, you will remember them. Cuisenaire died in 1976, but he always used to carry a collection of rods in his pocket, and he'd see people on the train, and he'd say, "Do you know these?" And he was very, very happy if they said, "Yes, I do," because he would introduce himself as their father. Now, we had these in primary school. And I was talking to my best friend yesterday, and I said, "Do you remember Cuisenaire rods?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, they were fantastic." And I said, "Yeah, another friend of ours, Azim, he really loved them too. But for some reason, I can't remember them." And I think that says a lot to do with my relationship with maths.
Oh, so you, Claudia, can't remember them?
I can't remember them. All my friends remember them, but I do not. And I'm not a lover of mathematics.
That's
so maybe
very telling.
I know. I did not respond to the little coloured bits of wood, even though my life is about responding to little coloured things. So I don't remember them.
That's so interesting. You know, they were.
I know. They were a thing.
I should know this because I wrote the chapter. But when do people did they stop being used at all? Or I mean,
I think they did.
Yeah, I guess there are all sorts of digital alternatives.
Yeah, there always new ways.
Digital, which is a pity. But I do, I do recall, I could almost name all of the colours and associated numbers. You know, the 1 is white, the 2 is red, the 3 is green, and so on and so forth. But I love the image of the guy with them rattling around in his pocket.
In his pocket, yes.
Is that a 10 in your pocket, or just pleased to see me? You know, so.
Well, I think it's a bit like Remo Since walking around saying, "Here, this is books 1 to 4.
I know.
In different colours."
I need bigger pockets. Yeah, that's good. It's very good. Well, yeah, and we had a Remo T-shirt and we used to sell the rods. Yeah, we used to sell the rods in boxes. I remember the name of the supplier even, Kembo Cuisenaire in Sydney. But Okay, well, the last topic for today is another colour. I can't recall if there's a purple Cuisenaire on for the moment, but the colour purple is an intriguing thing, actually, when you look into it. The originally purple, and weirdly, was this dye that was extracted from a sea snail called the spiny murex sea snail, and only found along the shores of the city of Tyre in ancient Phoenicia, which is modern-day Lebanon. These snails have got kind of a purpley hue to their inside lining, but each snail would only yield a tiny little drop of this precious secretion, such that as many as 250,000 snails were needed to produce a tablespoon of purple dye.
What?
So I know, it's kind of crazy. And the snails had to be collected by hand, crushed, salted over 3 days, and boiled for 10 more days. And only then would they release this rich purple colour. Moreover, to ensure that the dye didn't wash out of fabric, a mordant, which is a liquid that combines with the dye to render it holdfast, was needed. And the most popular mordant was urine. So after all of this processing, then you had urine thrown in there to boot. So despite the kind of funky origins and
Funky, all right.
during the sort
piss
of
on this.
antiquity, the colour purple was so rare and so hard to make that it symbolised royalty and political authority. So only Roman emperors and the ultra wealthy could afford to wear purple. And it was actually illegal for a plebeian to wear anything purple. How dare you wear purple? So this all changed in 1856. A precocious chemist named William Henry Perkin, who was only 18 at the time, was failing in an experiment to synthetically produce quinine, which is a chemical that helps treat malaria. So his beakers, after this failed experiment, were left with this kind of sturdy brown sludge in them. Boo-hoo, failed experiment. But when he added alcohol to the beakers to clean them, this dirty brown sludge produced this vivid red, fuchsia, purple dye. So it was an accident. The first synthetic dye was a byproduct of a failed experiment, and Perkin named it Mauvine, Mauveine. So
That's where we get the word mauve.
Maybe, yeah. Well, what came first, Mauvine or mauve? I'll get back to you on that. But he was smart enough to patent the method and set up a factory. Sounds like a very savvy 18-year-old, if you ask me. And set up a factory with his brother. It was funded by his father. And in doing so, he brought the colour purple to the Victorian mass market. Timing was great. Purple cloth was very much in style. Queen Victoria wore a Mauvine dyed gown to the Royal Exhibition of 1862. So purple was all the rage, frankly. You couldn't go past purple. There was a frenzy. And then, it's continued to sort of be a popular colour. And a comeback in the 20th century where George VI featured it in his official portrait, and even for the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. But purple, so it has this kind of royal, regal, rare background, but it also has come to mean a whole batch of other kind of interesting things. It's associated with social change, the women's suffragette movement, LGBTQI issues. Purple is synonymous with kind of that culture, I think, and also psychedelic drug culture in the 60s and 70s. And to boot, piety and religious leaders, the bishop's purple. And finally, the musician Prince,
The purple one,
nicknamed
yes.
the Purple One. He's been associated with the colour purple since releasing that Oscar-winning album and self-named movie, Purple Rain. He died in 2016, accidental fentanyl overdose. And in memory of that, the Pantone Colour Institute, we've done a story on Pantone in one of the books, announced that it added a new colour to its rainbow, and it was called Love Symbol Number 2, and was a shade of purple that was mixed in honour of the late pop icon. So there's a lot of stuff about purple when you look into it. I can't say that I'm a big purple wearer, but then again, I'm just about only a black and white wearer, really, so that's nothing special about that. But have you got
I like purple.
anything good or bad to say about purple?
No, purple's good, but also thinking about bringing to extinction all of those little snails. You think about beetles' wings being used for shellac,
Yeah, right.
and things like that. So these poor insects that clever people thought, oh, this does this, and if I squash these thousands and thousands
It
of
only
beetle
takes
wings,
250,000 of these shells to create
Exactly.
my toga.
Exactly. So, interestingly, in the world of nature, we can drive things to extinction by just coming up with wonderful colours and pretty things for us to admire. Now, I want to tell you about the great escape artist Houdini.
Oh,
Harry
great, yeah.
Houdini. What a guy.
People love Houdini.
Yeah, they do, because he captures the imagination, magic's greatest visionary. So he was born Eric Weiss. He was the son of a rabbi who emigrated from Hungary to the United States, went to Appleton, Wisconsin, and he was a little boy and he becomes a trapeze artist. Then he moves to New York City in 1882 and he's performing in vaudeville shows there, but he's not really doing very well. 1894, he marries his fellow performer Wilhelmina Rana, who becomes his stage assistant under the name Beatrice Houdini. And then from about 1900 on, things start to click for him, and he finds his Ikigai. And he earns an international reputation as an escape artist. Not just escape artist, but a daring escape artist. So in 1908, he introduces his milk can escape, where he's handcuffed and he's sealed inside a giant milk can that's filled with water, and he escapes behind a curtain. And they advertise it with these posters that say, failure means a drowning death. And the escape is an absolute sensation. Then he's got the famous Chinese water torture cell, where his feet are locked in stocks. He's lowered upside down into a tank full of water. The mahogany and metal cell has got a glass front on it, through which the audiences can clearly see him. And then again, there's a curtain to conceal his escape. And one of his most popular publicity stunts was to have himself strapped into a straitjacket and he's suspended by his ankles from a tall building or a crane. I have seen footage of this one. And he would make his escape in full view of the crowd, because they're all going, whoa, looking up, and there he is upside down in a straitjacket. He escapes, traffic's at a standstill. Another one, he escaped from a nailed and roped packing crate that was then lowered into the water. He did this one in the New York's East River in 1912. He escapes 57 seconds. He's out. And they find empty box with the manacles still inside. So his uncanny escape abilities partly depended on his great physical strength, but also because he was a really, really good lock picker.
Yeah, right.
So that helps. He was also anti-spiritualism, because, around this time it's sort of hoo-ha, let's summon the dead, let's have a Ouija board session. So he wanted to always debunk the myths of psychics and mediums. And it's kind of ironic, because Halloween every year, this bunch of enthusiasts get together around the world to try and raise Houdini from the dead. Now, he died of peritonitis on the 31st of October in 1926. And strangely, because he's anti-spiritualism and the whole thing, he did leave a note for his wife saying, if possible, I will contact you from the grave. So far, He has not yet been in contact.
I'm kind of imagining Tony Curtis, the actor, when you talk Houdini. He was the guy that played Houdini, right? Because when you described that glass case curtain thing, I can literally remember this sort of panic that I felt as a little boy watching that, worrying about Harry Houdini. But the strength thing, I think people don't realise how nuggety and strong he was to sort of basically wrench himself out of those straitjackets.
Another thing about those escapologists, which the reading about Harry Houdini, it doesn't mention, a lot of them could dislocate their shoulders completely. So getting out of something like a straitjacket, they go, and they physically dislocate their shoulders to do these great escapes. So a lot of them had that ability as well.
Yeah.
Does that make you cry?
Well, I'm not sure that's my kind of Ikigai, but...
No, that just makes him an Ikigai, doesn't it?
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think we're out of time. You can read more detail about all of these stories in the relevant memoranda. Is that the plural of memorandums? Do you think?
It is, but let's stick to the name of the book. It's called Remorandum.
Okay. You can catch those. You can subscribe, and that's all I have to say.
Oh, you can see us on Spotify if you want to see the faces behind the voices. Go to Spotify or YouTube and
see
have a look.
Me holding up a whole stack of books.
Look at those. They're so pretty. They're like Cuisenaire rods.
Colourful spines.
Very nice. And you can order copies of these magical books, Remorandom, at remorandom.com. You might like to drop us a note and say, you know what, I've got a great idea for a story. I can top your beetle wings and whatevers. So head to the website, remorandom.com, or you can email us at hello@remorandom.com with your great ideas.
Thank you, Claudia. That's beautifully read. And I'll catch you when I'm back from TED. I'll let you know how it goes over there.
Yeah, take those books with you.
I'll be spruiking. I'm going to take a set of Cuisenaire rods as well, just to surprise people.
Pop them in your pocket, love.
All right. Take care. See you soon.
See you. Bye-bye.